A refugee is someone who flees their country seeking refuge from war, political oppression, persecution, or natural disaster.
Around 21.3 million people are currently refugees. Over half of them are under 18.
The UK is home to less than 1% of refugees.
In 2015, 3,770 migrants died whilst trying to travel across the Mediterranean Sea.
And yet, some newspapers appear hostile towards the plight of refugees. Migrants are dehumanised with words such as swarm and implications of criminality. But is that fair?
We spent a week meeting artists, activists, and people directly involved in what is now known as the refugee crisis.
We met Ahmad from Syria, who appears in the BBC documentary Exodus, Our Journey to Europe.
What is it like to be a refugee?
Oh, what a tough question. I think people should know that it's not a matter of choice. You do not choose to be a refugee. In the Syrian case, it's a civil war where the person or the government or the army or the group who's supposed to protect you is killing you.
Could you briefly describe the concept behind the Exodus documentary?
I think the BBC decided we need to go behind the headlines. Some TV, they just send their reporters, they just go there, they shoot it for 2 minutes, and that's it. The idea was to investigate the crisis in more depth so the people get the chance to understand what's going on, why these people are fleeing, and how they're fleeing, and what are the risks that these people are facing while they're fleeing.
Could you tell us about how you were involved in the filming of Exodus?
It was never planned. I just wanted to document it for my family. I told my brother, this is my email, this is my password, I'm gonna upload all the videos that I take. So if things go wrong, if I lose my life while I'm crossing from Turkey to Greece, you will have already the footage that I upload on cloud, so I can show it to my family. And you tell them that I lost my life because I was trying very hard to do something for them. And I got so lucky that I crossed safely and I got to Greece. And I was on one of these islands where I just came across one of the guys who was just randomly shooting people, and he said, I am working on a documentary for the BBC and we are very keen to see if you are able to help us document the story. They said presumably you already managed to get some footage, if you're happy to share it with us. So I thought, okay, why not?
I watched Exodus and I've seen Ahmad through the past 3 episodes. I see him as like an inspiration to have travelled and to have gone through so much in order to make a difference in his family and to bring his family to safety.
I mean, the journey was an appalling journey. It took me about 2 months to get from Syria to the UK. What broke my heart the most was I had friends, English friends, American friends. For them, traveling from the Middle East to Europe was just like this. You go to the airport, okay? You check your passport, you fly. 2, 3 hours, 4 hours. You'll be wherever you want in the world. For me, being a Syrian was not the case. You're not allowed to go close to the airport. When they see your passport, the Syrian passport, they just kick you out of the airport. So your nationality was a curse. It was a very tough journey because I didn't have options. So I couldn't get a student visa, I couldn't get a work visa because of the crisis in my country. That's why I decided to take an alternative route, which was the smugglers.
He had to rely on smugglers or people traffickers who conned him and put him in dangerous situations. For example, a flight from Athens to France with a fake passport.
He thought he was going to get stopped because he had the fake passport, but then he got past it and he just got straight on the plane. He felt really nervous before though, and then in Calais he got put in the tanker of flour. He almost suffocated because they had no air in there, and I thought, okay, that's really serious. He's just been conned there.
Eventually, he got to the UK. He got citizenship so he could get his wife and child over legally and led a safe journey.
I just thought, wow, this guy's been through a lot. I believe that no one really wants to leave their home. It's hard for me to even leave my house when my mum decides we want to move. So imagine leaving your country and everything behind.
We're in Dalston to interview award-winning artist Olivier Kugler.
I did these drawings. They were basically assigned by Doctors Without Borders. There's also a magazine in America, it's called Harper's Magazine, that was interested in publishing. They asked me if I would like to create a series of drawings that are documenting the circumstances of the refugees. I got 3 different assignments. The first one was to go to Iraqi Kurdistan, to the camp. The second one was to go to Greece. And the third one was to go to Calais, to the jungle camp. I can show you the way I do my work. I conduct the interviews. I've got a little audio recorder. I use the camera to take the reference photos. Then when I'm back in my studio, I start looking at all the photos, listen to all the interviews again, and then I start making sketches. When I'm happy with the drawing, I scan it into the computer, color the drawing, and handwrite the text from the transcript of the interview and place it into the layout. When I see the drawings now, I think about the story of Shireen and her parents. She's a physiotherapist from Damascus. I met her on Kos Island. They were camping in front of the police station. The refugees had to go to the police station every day to see if their papers already got sorted out so they can leave the island.
We would love to stay in a hotel, sleep in a bed. We had our last shower 10 days ago. We have money to pay for a room, but it's a tourist season and it's very difficult to get a room, especially if you are Syrian. We left Aleppo a year ago. Our beloved house was destroyed in the fighting. We escaped to Lebanon, where we lived in the Shatila refugee camp. My father is 75 years old and diabetic. He's suffering from hypertension. Upon our arrival on Kos, my father had a breakdown. I had to touch his heart to see if he was still alive.
I thought Olivier's art was very interesting because you're used to seeing it in the media, like pictures of the camps, and you become desensitized to it. But I think seeing it in this new way and reading the stories, like in the way he's written them, it brings the feeling back into seeing these refugees. We're at the Jewish Museum in Camden to see how Britain has treated refugees in the past.
Many Jewish people came to this country as refugees fleeing persecution at many different times, and they have contributed a huge amount in terms of their culture, in terms of their faith, in terms of their hard work. Being a Londoner, I don't think London would necessarily be the same if you didn't have Jewish London. And one of the things I found out from working here was that fish and chips is a Jewish thing.
I did not realise how enriching and how deep the Jewish history and community goes in Britain, and nothing that they've been through in the past, you know, with war and genocide, can take that away from them.
We saw about how the Jews had been treated in the newspaper.
Of a Sunday, they swarmed so thick that the sight of them was shocking. Talking of migrants being as swarms, 1748. So this just shows you that the language in which we talk about migrants, refugees, hasn't changed, unfortunately.
Why do you think that throughout history there has been resistance by the British people to accept refugees?
I think if we look at what's happened recently post-Brexit, there's actually been amongst part of the population a wave of support for refugees and immigrants. But unfortunately, fear can be a very powerful thing. And if something isn't going right in your life, or if you feel vulnerable or unstable in your life and your conditions, the easiest thing is to blame someone else.
Do you feel that the refugees of today will be thought of in the same way as the Jewish people who were persecuted in the past?
One of the reasons why Jewish people perhaps weren't helped as much prior or during World War II is because of the existing anti-Semitism that was around in numerous countries over the world. So that reluctance to really help and get on board because it was the Jewish people who were being persecuted. And it's exactly the same nowadays with Syrian refugees or refugees from the Middle East. People think, well, they're Muslim people and they don't want to help them.
We look back on what happened in Nazi Germany and we think it's such a travesty, but I think in a few years now our generation will be kicking themselves for not doing enough for the Syrian refugees.
In the past, the UK has accepted larger numbers of refugees. Do you think this has been successful and can be done again?
Yes, and yes. I believe that anyone should be able to live wherever they want for whatever reasons they want. But people who are in immediate danger, I think it's our duty as human beings to help.
Do you feel that the British public has given you a warm welcome?
A very, very warm welcome. For me, it was a very positive. For others, were very negative. I was hosted by an English family who turned out to be children of refugees themselves. Their parents were refugees who fled the Nazis from Germany and Austria. So I was welcomed by them. I made a very good network of friends, supporters. A lot of people who helped. They're very generous. And sometimes when you say generous, it's not about money. It's not about the material things. It's just about the smile that you put in your face when you meet a stranger. And that's why I've written an open letter thanking the British for their warm welcome to me. And this was picked by The Independent.
I walked into this process thinking I know so much about refugees, but when you hear the stories of someone who's actually been through it, an actual refugee, you realise that no one knows enough and not enough is being done. So it was a big wake-up call for me.
I've learned that all refugees, they're just all like us. They think like us, they act like us. Pretty much the same, except they don't have a home and we do.
Now is the time when we need to stand up and start making a difference, otherwise things are just going to get worse. Progression is through unity and not division.